Okay, so the artist we're going to talk about today is an artist that is an R&B artist, which I think is a little different. I think his take on music is a little different. If you ask him, he'll probably say that music is an expression of art. But he isn't very much covered in the rap releases or stuff like that anymore. Due to his prior case. And the artist is called Tory Lanez. Without a doubt, I think Tory Lanez is an okay R&B artist, and there's no hate towards Tory Lanez. But I think there are some situations where you're like, okay, I get what Tory's saying. He's good when he has a message behind his songs. He's always great. The guy can sing. Okay, so he released a song called "Shot Clock Violations," where he throws a lot of details and a lot of different jabs in this song, which I don't think a lot of people picked up on. And it's kind of sad thinking about it because of the lyrics that he uses in a song that are very expressive, I guess is the word I would use to express his emotions. And now I want to say this before I go into this episode, that he's never stated that he had a problem with any of these artists, but some of these lines seem that they're aimed at a few people. And I'll get right into that. Let's see what happens. I'll get right into it.
Chegou a melhor parte do podcast. É hora de provar a melhor Coca-Cola. A Coca-Cola sem açúcar. O sabor irresistível da Coca-Cola, sem açúcar e igualmente refrescante. Coca-Cola sem açúcar. A melhor escolha.
Okay, so as I said, one of these is where he says, "Where did all my exes go? Text them XO." Right? And I guess and he says, I guess it's going to be a long car ride as far as those connections go, right? So meaning those connections are going to be far, like a car ride. But he says XO, and I can't go texting X and O's, which I can't go without going, oh, he's talking about the little Weeknd, how the Weeknd used to say XO and like many of his songs, like the first trilogy days, which I don't think that's a diss, but I think that's where he was going with it, where he said XO. Because he also makes another reference in here, we'll get to that. But he also says, which I think is common because both of these artists are The Weeknd and Tory Lanez is both Canadian, so I think that's just kind of him giving him his flowers, because it's a long drive, or also because the girls that he deals with are in the States and he's in Canada. He said, "With top 4 spitting blessing flows," which I think extra cash, which I think is true. I think he's taken a lot of different flows from people or just genres and mixed them together and kind of made a lot of money off of it. That's without a doubt saying that. And he's saying extra money goes off the charts in his next line, which I think, without a doubt, him saying money goes off the charts in his next line is probably, without him even charting, he's making extra. He's making a lot more money because Tory is more independent. He's a more independent artist now, but I think that probably will change. Because later in the song, he mentions that he signed a deal in 2020 and he won't need an advance, which I think a lot of people don't understand. So advances are what labels pay you to make an album or necessarily live your life, right? And it sounds crazy to me, but it's a weird thing because you don't hear a lot of artists talk about their advances they get from their label to make the album. I think the only other artist that's done it is Logic, and he says he won't need it his next advance, which I think is crazy to me. He says, "I don't want to powwow the mic," which I think this is the funniest setup I've ever heard. He said, "Powwow the mic, make me like Mike, make me like Mike, and I ain't Lil Bow Wow." So I think this is funny to me because he says powwow the mic, right? And I think it's one of those things in Little Mike where he grabs this mic and Bow Wow does his thing. But Bow Wow was so much younger when he did it. This is why I think this will go over a lot of people's head. He says, "I'm not Little Bow Wow," even though the movie, like Mike, was about Lil Bow Wow and basketball. I think it's a funny reference. As I said, I don't think he has any beef with anybody. I just think when he says it, he said the first thing that came off to his mind. And so that's why we get that kind of reference. And then he says, it was all great because I was getting money now, way before Love Me Now. The album that Tory Lanez did, Love Me Now, which I think Love Me Now by Tory Lanez is probably his one of his best received albums, right? Besides the Toronto's, his Love Me Now is better than the Chai mix, the Chicks Mixtape 5, Don't Memorize, Daystar. I think overall, Love Me Now, the Love Me Now Reloaded with Bryson Tiller as one of the features. Like, the feature list goes crazy on that Love Me Now. And it might be true. He might have been making a lot of money before Love Me Now. I'm not a huge, like, Tory, like, fan. I think I've learned into his diss tracks with Don Q a few times. But as of Tory's music himself, I've never really been a guy now. Because he says he's made more money than Love Me. And he says the shows are 100,000, which is probably true. That's probably what he charges to go up to a show. But he says he made more money than Love Me Now, right? And that's crazy to me. Just because Love Me Now might have been his biggest album to date, sales wise. He says I'm getting cash money now, which I think, okay. This might not be a shot, but it is funny if you think it's a shot. Nobody on Cash Money ever said they got their money right away. It was always litigation on where their money was, right? Or where did it go to? So Cash Money, Young Money Records, I just find that funny. They want to kill me by drive-bys and throw shots at my grave. And that's how he starts it off. And it's crazy. If you remember Cash Money ages ago, it's crazy, right? So, and then he says, I'm just juggling in place. Like, I'm to myself in my own place. He says, haven't I proven to you that I'm always hot and it's never cold? And I think that's, so it's a weird thing to me where he says, do I have to keep showing you I'm hot? Which I think a lot of people keep saying, and this is before that situation that he's in court for. Now, people were like, can Tory Lanez stay hot? Or is he just for like the year? But every time you look at him, every time he releases something, there's always 100,000. 100,000 views on his videos, his music. Every time he releases something, it does great numbers. Now, I don't know if they were projecting him doing 1 million and he do 1,000. Okay, that might be disappointing. Or 350,000 and he doing 1,000, 100,000. You know, like, those are the little things that I don't know that they won't tell you. And then I don't remember, and this might just be an older thing, but people were like, I'm still chucking up my J's. Like, that used to be that old saying, right? And I don't know, where people stand on that now. But, chucking up my J's just meant something different back then. Which I think isn't a bad thing, but when you listen to what Tory is saying, he says, but I'm not stopping, right? No matter what the allegations are, if he's independent, he's not gonna stop. He's gonna keep chasing, keep releasing music. And I think that's different from what we're hearing from a lot of artists lately. They're gonna retire soon. So Tory Lanez is like, I'm not gonna retire, I'm gonna just keep going until the money stops. And he says we start talking in code. And so this is a weird thing to me, only because there are a lot of situations, and granted there are a lot of rappers that could be in these situations where they're so high up that if they call somebody, the line is tapped. And now when I explain the line is tapped, it's monitored, right? But they start, or if they're locked up, they can't say certain words over the jail phone. So they kind of just use like different words to do it. People have done it for years, right? So when he says we have to start speaking in code, it's almost like, hey, my phones are being tapped for whatever situation. Now, it might not be a RICO situation. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a huge Tory Lanez specialist when it comes to music. I'm not. I'm just not. He says, I know I'm in sync, right? And which I think what he was trying to say is I'm 50 Cent. I'm in my 50 cent, like I'm in my 50 cent bag, which could be true. Because Tory Lanez has been hot for a minute, and 50 at the time didn't have like a label pushing his stuff out. So if Tory Lanez feels that way, that's great. I would watch out. But if you feel that way, I would watch out. I don't know. Tory Lanez overall, I think the song is okay. It's not the best I've heard from Tory Lanez. So sadly, I'm gonna go with 6 out of 10. It's not because I hated the song. It's just because it was like little jabs at it. And I don't hate subliminals, but it's like over this beat where you just, it's a weird thing to witness, especially from Tory Lanez. So that's the only reason I feel that way. So overall, not bad.